All right, so I think there were already some pretty good discussions, and we would like to thank you for that very much. Our goal right now is not necessarily to engage in one more discussion. I think our goal right now is to summarize what we've heard from you on each of those topics that we've discussed, and then through the workshop report and then through the thematic report, there will be occasions to refine our recommendations and get your input as well as the input of the working groups on what we're saying. So if I'm saying something really, really stupid, please interrupt me. My goal here is just to summarize what I've heard without necessarily passing judgment on the outcome of the groups. So as a reminder, so what this morning we took stock of the state of the art in terms of scalability, interoperability, and sustainability. And this afternoon we brainstorm as to what would be the requirements that we would like a European infrastructure to comply with. What do we mean by European infrastructure? We mean a service that is based on the blockchain that would allow member states to run services such as VAT reconciliation, right? So a use case which would require various customs agencies, tax agencies, port authorities to collaborate in order to reconcile VAT. And then also we talked about diplomas and certifications, so a use case that would require a whole lot of schools, institutes to be able to, and employers to be able to write or read certifications on the blockchain. So what do we need in order to deliver that? First and foremost, we need a governance and we need business processes. We need to define those. My perception is that the groups that focused on this topic talked a lot about regulation and crypto regulation, which is relevant but does not cover the full topic. However, so when it comes to governance and business processes, I think if I summarize what I've heard the following. First of all, we have to start with the use cases and the business processes. This is a clear message from you. There is a debate, and I don't think that this debate is settled, as to whether it is realistic to have a blockchain infrastructure that will do everything, diplomas, VAT, serve coffee and everything, or whether it is more realistic to have one blockchain per use case. I think Alastria is a good example of blockchain that aims to be multifunction, and then the infrastructure for health that the European Commission is currently tendering for, is at the other end of the spectrum a blockchain that is specific to a smaller set of use cases. So there's a debate, and we haven't really reached consensus on that question. We also talked about the fact that there needs to be a very clear governance of the whole infrastructure. Of course, and again, Alastria here and InfraChain are very good examples to study as potential models. And that means having clarity on what is the legal responsibility of each actor, what are their liabilities, etc. Finally, I think we reached a certain level of consensus around the fact that, unfortunately, while there are scalability solutions that are being researched, scalability limitations are here right now. And so if we are going to run services on a blockchain, we need to take that limitation in consideration, at least when it comes to the blockchains that are right now the most mature, and think about how we manage those scalability limitations as opposed to hoping that they can be resolved overnight. On that topic of throughput limitation and throughput management, some people in the room have proposed using a method similar to that on the public blockchains and having some kind of token mechanism that regulates how people, how many transactions people are allowed to submit to the blockchain. Of course, opening up the topic of tokens creates many complications, such as how do we make sure that they are not tradable, that there is no speculation, and that how do we determine how many tokens we give to government agencies, essential services, and basic citizens. So that's on governance. Then we move to architecture. So on architecture, there is a clear consensus in the room that we need to think about this whole infrastructure as a collection of services. Right? So not a single monolithic application, but rather a suite of components that can be replaced or upgraded as technology evolves, so that we are not too dependent on a single technology or a single service. We talked about separation and concerns, and we talked about also the need to be realistic and anticipate that at some point in the future, we might start with one or two blockchain technologies, and at some point in the future, we might have to migrate to other ones. There was a lot of discussion on how this architecture interoperates with the outside world. So we talked about identity a lot. And so identity at this point is really a problem that I feel, when you drill down what it implies, it becomes very tough and very large. And so the discussions were a reflection of that. For example, we talked about the need that identities should be backed by the various e-identities of the member states, which, if you look at the whole European Union, could imply being interoperable with more than 100 different identity registries. And we talked about the fact that identity is actually not monolithic. It's not a simple concept. It implies several distinct components. First, how do I authentify? So whether it's signature, fingerprint, biometrics. Then once I've identified, I have access to my core identity, which is a whole bunch of data that I or someone else stores on my behalf in order to prove certain statements. And then that core identity is translated into more narrow identities, which can be either personas, so such as the identity that I use to transact with my school or with my employer, and then even sometimes one-time identities, which are only allowed to allow me to perform a single transaction. So identity is not a simple concept at all, both because it needs to interoperate with existing registries and because even on the blockchain, it takes many, many different forms. I need to speed up? And finally, besides identities, we talked about interoperability with the outside world, another very difficult problem, right? So how, assuming that this infrastructure will need to communicate with hardware, sensors, and external sources of data, do we need to predefine all the formats of those data standards, or do we allow for some room for flexibility in the sense that anyone should be able to propose a format going forward? And so, finally, when it comes to infrastructure and security requirements, first of all, there was a debate as to what kind of blockchain network we should use. There was a majority that argued for some kind of public permission network, but I wouldn't say that we reached consensus either. So there are public permission networks that are live or being tested now, but there are also many newer technologies that offer variants around that, and so those could be considered as well. As part of those public or private, but at least permission networks, of course, we need to have, from the people operating the service, a very clear definition of who is allowed to be a validator, who is allowed to be a regular node, who is able to read, write, or submit transactions, who is able to be an oracle. So there's a endless, not endless, but you can imagine already that there would need to be some kind of very large registry of who is allowed to do what on that network. And that registry would need to be operated by an administrative function. Another interesting argument which was brought into the mix was to say, well, we would like each member state to operate at least a node, and perhaps not that many, if most permission networks are unstable past 30 nodes. But we would also like this network to allow for certain independent node operators to be on the network, so that it does not feel like it's a purely government-controlled network, and it is also somehow checked. There are checks and balances on behalf of the citizens. So that was an interesting idea, I thought. When it comes to the management of the network and the roles and the permissions, of course there need to be functions in charge of administrative management, i.e. giving and withdrawing permissions. And we need to have functions in charge of the maintenance and the upgrade of the tech stack. And here the consensus was the decisions need to be distributed between the member states and potentially independent parties. But we can't distribute the execution of those decisions. Admin functions and maintenance and upgrades need to be, to the extent possible, concentrated within small expert teams so that we control who is able to make structural changes to the network. And then when it came to security requirements, we talked about three themes. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So on confidentiality, the consensus was, given that this is going to be a very large and distributed network, it's unlikely that we will be able to store anything that is remotely sensitive on it. And so generally, it's likely that while some metadata might be readable in clear in the network, all the actual data that is stored will be either encrypted or hashed so that it is not available to anyone who is just connecting to the network. When it comes to integrity, we talked about, of course, the integrity of the code. So the code needs to be peer-reviewed and audited. We also talked about the fact that the data that goes into the network needs to be validated according to common standards, whether they are 4ICE principles or whatever. But for those people who are responsible for writing data in the platform need to have a standard of when do we consider that the data is sufficiently validated. And finally, availability is a very, very important topic in two respects. Right? So because we are talking about IT services, we need to have clear uptime requirements, return time objectives, etc. But also we need to recognize that because we are in a context where scalability is limited, there will be times when the transaction queue is clogged. And in that case, we need to have a buffer that will keep all the transactions so that they don't get lost even if they are delayed. And we also need clear rules so that, for example, some transactions that are more essential to emergency services can go through immediately, whereas others, like citizen transactions, can be delayed and be queued, put at the end of the queue. We took the analogy of radio frequencies, whereby when you are a telecom operator and your network shuts down, you actually return access to the users according to a priority queue that starts with ambulances and policemen and then ends up with regular users. And that's it. Is there anything that I missed or misrepresented in your view? No. All right. So you'll have other occasions to contribute to those recommendations, again, through the thematic report, which will be distributed and animated through the Mobilize, eublockchain.mobilize.io platform. So thanks a lot for being with us tonight, today and tonight. Do we have anything else to say? There's no food, right? No food, no goodie bag. So
Do we have drinks? Alcohol-free drinks.
We have drinks at the, okay. So thanks a lot. We hope to see you again next time and have a safe trip back.